Across the continents of Earth, long before any global voyages or whispered rumors of distant lands, people looked at the sky and decided that the ground beneath their feet was not enough. They gathered stone upon stone and shaped the landscape into something that never occurred in nature. A shape with straight edges rising to a single point. A shape that demanded attention from the heavens and from every generation yet to come. That shape was the pyramid. It emerged in Africa in the great river valley of the Nile. It rose in the deserts of Sudan and the jungles of Mesoamerica. It appeared in ancient China in the islands of Indonesia and along the coast of what is now Peru. Cultures separated by oceans and by thousands upon thousands of years came to the same architectural conclusion. They all decided that a pyramid was the most meaningful thing a society could build. This is the puzzle that confronts archaeologists and historians. How could humans who never met, who never shared a common story or traded a single tool, each choose the same monumental structure? It would be convenient to say that the idea must have spread from one culture to another. But no evidence of such long-range contact exists across the vast seas that divide these civilizations in the periods when pyramids first appeared. The true explanation must lie deeper within the human mind. It must come from the way people think about power survival and the place they believe they occupy in the cosmos. The pyramid is a universal symbol because the needs that created it are universal. Imagine yourself as one of the early builders. You stand in a world of uncertainty. Floods may destroy the crops. Storms may wipe out homes. Enemies may rise from hidden horizons. Life feels fragile and brief. Yet above you, the stars move along steady paths night after night. The sun rises each morning without fail. There is order in the sky while the ground is chaos. When people place stones into a pyramid shape, they are not merely building a structure. They are reproducing the stability of the heavens upon the earth. The sloping sides guide the eye upward, pulling human hope toward the realm of the eternal. A pyramid is a statement that something perfect can last forever. There is also a practical genius in the form. When you try to build high gravity becomes your greatest opponent, walls must hold weight without collapsing. If you stack stones straight upward like a tower, the whole thing becomes fragile. But the moment you give the walls an inward slope, the weight of the entire structure presses downward into the ground. Every layer supports the one above it. More mass means more stability. The pyramid is the shape that defies time because time itself pushes downward, and the pyramid is built to take that pressure. The secret of its durability is hidden in plain sight. It is the geometry of permanence. That permanence mattered greatly. Kings and priests and rulers longed for the future to remember their names. Societies wanted the world to see their place in history. A village can vanish, a palace can crumble into dust. Wood decays and mud breaks apart under wind and rain. But stone carefully shaped and placed may last longer than the civilization that carved it. The pyramids of Egypt stand while the names of the workers who raised them are forgotten. The pyramids of the Maya endure while the empires that commanded them are silent. The structure becomes the message. It speaks even when every language that once explained it is gone. But if durability alone were the reason why choose the pyramid, rather than a giant wall or a vast platform? The answer is partly psychological. When humans see a pyramid, even without understanding its purpose, they feel its importance. The shape is simple, yet absolute. It does not need elaborate decorations to declare significance. It says, look. The eye climbs to the peak as if drawn toward a point of power. Something or someone of great consequence must lie there. Even today, when steel skyscrapers reach taller than any pyramid, the ancient form still commands reverence. Our minds instinctively recognize it as monumental. There is another deeper connection. Mountains have always been sacred. They rise above the world. They seem closer to the heavens. People believe that gods lived upon high peaks, or that ancestral spirits watched from those heights. But natural mountains stood wherever nature placed them, not where humans wanted them. So humanity built its own mountains. A pyramid is a deliberate mountain, a summit chosen by intention instead of accident. It is a statement that humans have the power to recreate the sacred as they understand it. Yet even mountains crumble eventually. What truly defies time is the idea encoded in the stones. When ancient people built pyramids, they were sending a message across centuries. Sometimes the message was honor the god who protects this land. Sometimes it was the ruler who lies here will live forever. Sometimes it was a cosmic declaration, a signal that humanity is part of something larger and everlasting. Even when we cannot fully decode the symbols, we feel the ambition in them. The message is that humans looked at eternity and dared to build toward it. Across the earth, people discovered this message independently. They were guided by the same twin forces: fear that life is temporary and longing for meaning that can outlast death. These forces shaped the earliest monumental architecture. They demanded a form that could endure and a shape that pointed upward toward gods or ancestors. The pyramid was the only answer that satisfied both the practical and the spiritual. It is the geometry of a promise that some part of us might remain even when the rest returns to dust. So the pyramid appears everywhere because the conditions that gave rise to it always existed. Wherever humans rose from simple shelters to planned monuments, the same challenge emerged. How do we prove to the future that we were here? How do we imprint our existence onto the planet so that no force can erase it? The pyramid solved that problem more elegantly than any other design. It was a declaration carved in sunlight and stone, a message that endured long after the people who engraved it vanished into history. Humans did not simply build pyramids to impress the world around them. They built them to influence the world above them. When people looked up at the stars, they saw patterns that returned every year in the same places. They saw the sun travel steadily from one horizon to another and back again. These lights in the darkness were the first reliable clocks and calendars. They foretold the flood of the Nile or the coming of a winter. They decided when to plant crops and when to harvest. They set the rhythm of life. To ancient eyes, the sky was the home of order and truth. So the upward-leaning sides of a pyramid were more than a physical climb. They were a symbolic journey from the chaos of Earth to the structure of the heavens. The pyramid allowed a culture to declare its connection to the cosmic plan. This idea grew stronger as societies became larger. When people lived in small groups moving across open land, there was little need for grand symbols. Life was immediate. But when thousands of people gathered along fertile rivers or in the shade of powerful rulers, a new need emerged. They needed proof that their system worked, that their decisions served something greater than themselves. A pyramid standing firm against wind and time gave that proof. It was a physical assurance that the community was united under a single vision. Every block placed upon the next was an act of shared belief. Workers who may never have spoken to the ruler still participated in the ruler's dream. Their effort turned into a monument that said, "This society has purpose. This society has weight in the universe." The pyramid was also a marker of territory. It claimed the land not only for a ruler, but for the culture and its identity. When travelers approached a valley or a city and saw a pyramid rising above everything else, they knew they were in the presence of a people who commanded stone and labor. A pyramid announced authority across open space and across generations. Even when cities fell or cities moved, the pyramid remained like a territorial signature carved into the earth. Different regions used different stones and different construction techniques. In Egypt, builders used limestone and granite, carved from quarries that still bear the marks of their tools. In Sudan, pyramids were steeper and smaller, but more numerous. In Mesoamerica, builders used volcanic rock adobe and later finely carved limestone, all shaped into stepped platforms crowned by temples. In China, tomb pyramids were made by shaping entire hills of packed earth. The materials changed with the landscape, but the idea remained. People everywhere recognized the pyramid as the ideal structure when the message had to endure. Scientific study has revealed that many pyramids were built in stages over several generations. A modest platform might begin the story. A later ruler might extend the sides outward, making the monument taller and broader. In some cases, this process repeated again and again until the final shape towered above everything. This shows that the message was not just about a single lifetime, it was about the continuity of culture. Successive generations renewed the promise that the monument represented. They did not tear down the work of the past. They elevated it, literally making earlier dreams part of the foundation for newer ones. There is another layer to this story rooted in human psychology. Humans notice patterns. We seek shapes that make sense to us. The pyramid offers a perfect blend of simplicity and meaning. The base is wide and strong like the body. The peak is focused and narrow like the mind or the soul reaching upward. Many civilizations believed that existence was divided between a lower world and a higher one. The pyramid reflects that belief naturally. It rises from the ground where ordinary life happens and narrows toward a point where the sacred or the eternal resides. It turns spiritual belief into visible form. Some scholars suggest that pyramids everywhere were inspired by the same ancient human experience. The first shelters were simple and sloped so that rainwater would flow away. When humans learned to stack these forms taller, a pyramid shape would appear naturally. The very first monumental architecture may have grown from this simple technology, made larger and larger over time. What began as a practical shape for protection evolved into the ultimate expression of meaning. The shift from survival to symbolism happened gradually, but the final result feels inevitable. The pyramid became the answer to the most persistent human questions. Who are we? Why are we here? What will remain of us? At night, when fires burned and wind moved through the stones, ancient people likely felt the monument itself alive. It captured starlight and moonlight. It cast huge shadows at sunrise and sunset. It turned human effort into something that felt beyond human. The pyramid became a threshold between worlds. Perhaps that is why so many pyramids contain hidden chambers and narrow passages leading to sacred spaces. They were not simply graves or storerooms. They were stages for rituals where people could speak to gods or ancestors. The structure amplified belief so that prayers might reach farther into the invisible realms. Even today, when we excavate these monuments with tools and science, we still feel that sense of awe. We still ask the same questions. We still wonder how people without modern machines moved such mass into perfect alignment. We still marvel that these shapes survived earthquakes and floods and centuries of erosion. We still recognize the message that the builders wanted the future to understand. They wanted us to know that they lived, that they organized, that they believed in something enduring. The stones are their words. The shape is their voice. In every region where pyramids appear, we find a story of transformation. A society that moves from small, scattered groups to an organized, complex community chooses to leave its mark. It chooses to build something that the entire culture will rally behind. That choice is a turning point in human history. It is the moment when people decide to speak not only to their neighbors, but to the future. It is the moment when architecture becomes communication. The pyramid is the first sentence in that language. The global mystery remains. How did cultures separated by entire oceans come to the same idea? The most accepted answer in modern archaeology is independent invention through shared human experience. But even that answer leaves us with wonder. It means that within every group of humans there exists a spark that pushes us toward monumental creation. It means that the shape of the pyramid is already inside the imagination, waiting for the moment when a culture becomes ambitious enough to build it. There's a quiet truth hidden beneath the stones. A pyramid does not only point upward, it also roots downward into the earth with an enormous base. This is the dual message that every ancient society understood. To touch the sky, you must first command the ground beneath you. Control of land, water, and labor was essential. Only a society with order and structure could imagine building on such a scale. When we see a pyramid, we are not just seeing engineering. We are seeing a record of organization. Every block of stone is a sign that thousands of lives were coordinated in the pursuit of a single goal. The pyramid stands as both a monument and a measurement of a civilization's strength. That strength did not come without sacrifice. To move mountains of stone using human force alone demanded immense time and energy. Workers left fields and families to labor under the heat of the sun. Craftspeople shaped tools from copper and carved stone with precision and repetition. Food had to be gathered and distributed, water brought to workers, paths constructed from quarries to building sites. This massive commitment reveals what societies valued most. When they chose to raise pyramids, they were choosing an idea over comfort. They believed that the story they wanted to tell the future was worth every drop of sweat spilled into the sand. The message of a pyramid was spoken not through words but through scale. Writing may be lost, languages may change, but size remains readable forever. When someone views a pyramid even without knowing its history, they understand immediately that it was important. That reaction is universal across time and across cultures. We do not need to translate immensity. It speaks directly to human emotion. This is why pyramids continue to fascinate us. They communicate in the simplest and most powerful way. They declare that the people who built them achieved something extraordinary. Even more remarkable is the way that many pyramids align with the paths of stars and the rising and setting of the sun. These alignments could not happen by accident. Builders watched the sky night after night, year after year, tracking the movement of celestial lights with careful attention. They used this knowledge to fix the sides of pyramids to the cardinal directions or to specific stars that held sacred meaning. This was not only astronomy. It was a proclamation that the lives of humans were connected to the vast heavens above. By pointing stone toward the eternal cycles of light and darkness, they inscribed their society into the structure of the universe. This union of practicality and spirituality made the pyramid a perfect monument. It was science carved into belief. It was geometry guided by myth. The slope of each side was determined by mathematical understanding that grew out of observing the natural world. Even without writing equations, ancient architects knew how to measure angles and calculate volume through experience and repeated experimentation. They learned to cut stones so that they interlocked tightly without mortar. They found ways to haul blocks weighing more than elephants using ropes, rollers, and carefully planned ramps. Pyramids became laboratories of human ingenuity long before anyone used that word. Every stone teaches us that knowledge expands when purpose demands it. Yet the pyramid did not only reflect the rulers who ordered its construction, it also reflected the workers who placed every block. Their fingerprints remain on the stones, their bones sometimes lie in graves near the construction sites. Archaeology shows that many workers were not enslaved, but were fed, cared for, and respected as part of a great national task. They may not have known the full meaning of the structure they were raising, yet their hands shaped one of the most lasting symbols in human history. The pyramid is a collective achievement, the result of thousands of individual efforts aimed at a single summit. In this way, the pyramid is also a story of unity. For a moment in time, everyone was building toward the same goal. Everyone looked toward the peak, even if they would never stand upon it. The monument brought people together into something larger than themselves. In life, most individuals vanish into obscurity, but through the pyramid, they became part of a message far greater than any one name. They inscribed their existence into the bones of the earth. Over the centuries, many pyramids have been stripped of their outer layers. Smooth casing stones that once glistened in sunlight have been removed to build later cities. Some interiors have been looted by treasure seekers who valued gold more than meaning. But even with these wounds, the shape endures. The skeleton of the pyramid remains solid and clear, like a word spoken so loudly that even echoes cannot fully fade it. Persists. Time may erode every detail except intention. The pyramid holds that intention like a heart of stone still beating with the dreams of the long dead. When we stand before a pyramid now, we are separated from its builders by countless generations. We do not know their voices or their fears or their private joys. But the fact that they built something that still exists lets us feel a connection to them. It reminds us that our own achievements might echo forward too. It pushes us to imagine what we would build if our goal were to be remembered in 10 to the power of 3 centuries. The pyramid challenges us to think on a scale that stretches beyond a single lifetime. It expands our sense of what humans can do when guided by belief and determination. So why did pyramids appear everywhere? Because the search for permanence belongs to all of us. because every culture that reached a moment of confidence and ambition faced the same question. How do we show that we are part of the universe? How do we anchor our existence to time? The pyramid is the answer carved in stone. It is a universal solution to the problem of mortality. Each ancient builder made a promise to the future that their life and their civilization mattered. We are that future. We are the ones who witness the promise fulfilled. The form may be ancient, but the message still feels new. We still build structures that rise as high as possible. We still shape skylines into monuments of power. We still chase the sky. Yet no modern building has captured the human imagination as deeply or as lastingly as the pyramid. That truth invites reflection. Have we advanced, or have we forgotten something essential? The pyramid suggests that everything great begins with a simple idea, a foundation that spreads wide and a dream that narrows upward to meet the stars. The story of pyramids is far from over. It leads us to Egypt, where the form reached its most refined expression. In that desert along the Nile, the pyramid became more than a structure. It became a machine for resurrection, a pathway for kings to rise into the night sky. It became a declaration that rulers were not merely human, but divine. To understand the global message of pyramids, we must journey first to that ancient kingdom where stone became eternity. Along the banks of the Nile, the pyramid became more than a universal idea. It became a perfected vision. Here, stone was transformed into a ladder for gods. The ancient Egyptians believed that life did not end with death. It changed form. Kings were not merely rulers of flesh and bone. They were destined to ascend to the sky to join the imperishable stars that never vanished beneath the horizon. To make that journey, a structure was needed, a monumental machine for resurrection. Egypt built that machine with breathtaking ambition. Before the pyramids, there were mastabas. These were long, flat tombs shaped like low rectangles. They held the bodies of leaders and were covered with layers of mud bricks. But mud bricks do not survive the ages. Rain and time consume them. One ruler decided that the home for his afterlife must be stronger and more daring. His name was Giza. He chose a visionary architect to craft a tomb unlike anything seen before. That architect was Imhotep. Placing mastaba upon mastaba, he created a staircase of stone rising toward the heavens. This was the step pyramid of Saqqara. It stood taller than any structure humans had ever built. It was a revelation. It proved that stone could rise in levels without collapse. It proved that humans could reshape the world in the image of their beliefs. The step pyramid was not only a tomb, it was a full ceremonial complex where rituals were performed to revive the king's spirit. Beneath the pyramid stretched a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers designed to protect the ruler and the treasures that would accompany him into eternity. This design reflected a deep fear and a deeper hope. The fear was that death might erase identity. The hope was that through ritual and architecture, identity could be restored beyond the grave. The pyramid did not simply preserve the body, it preserved purpose. From this first monumental experiment, Egypt learned that stone could be cut and moved with remarkable precision. Workers shaped limestone blocks with copper tools and wooden mallets. They dragged each stone across sandy ground lubricated with water to reduce friction. Paths were built, ramps were raised, thousands upon thousands of hands guided every block into place. The step pyramid was not smooth, it had visible layers, but those layers were meaningful. They represented progress, a climb, a rising path. Later, kings refined the form. They filled in the steps, creating smooth, angled sides that reflected sunlight in a dazzling display. These shining pyramids would become the most iconic images of ancient Egypt. The angle of ascent was not random. It matched a symbolic number believed to express the meeting of earth and sky. The pyramid shape now represented a sunbeam made solid, a ray frozen in limestone, a celestial path made permanent so that kings might follow it to the heavens where the gods awaited. Egyptian builders oriented these pyramids with astonishing accuracy. The sides were aligned almost perfectly with the four cardinal directions. The north face pointed toward the region of the northern sky, where the undying stars circled. These stars never dipped below the horizon. They were believed to be the spirits of eternal kings. By aligning the pyramid to them, the pharaoh ensured that his soul would join their never-ending rotation. The pyramid was therefore a cosmic compass, guiding the ruler's spirit to immortality. Beneath the Great Pyramid of Khufu, the chambers and passageways are arranged with exacting purpose. A descending tunnel reaches deep underground, symbolizing the journey into the dark womb of Earth. Another passage climbs upward, pointing toward the stars. This dual path expressed the belief that rebirth is a movement from the depths of the Earth to the infinite sky. The architecture itself played the role of myth. Every stone was a line in a sacred script, telling the story of the king's transformation from man to star. Egyptian culture recognized that the pharaoh's immortality was tied to the stability of the kingdom. If the ruler lived forever in divine form, then the land too could flourish eternally. People contributed labor because they believed that building a pyramid was not just glorifying a single person. It was strengthening the cosmic order of the entire world. To construct such a monument was an act of faith in continuity, a promise that life would not fall into chaos. The pyramids also bore inscriptions and symbolic objects meant to protect the king in the afterlife. Although the earliest pyramids lacked detailed text, later structures included spells and carvings that described the king's celestial ascent. These inscriptions are known as pyramid texts, the oldest large religious writings on Earth. They speak of the pharaoh becoming a star, becoming a falcon soaring with the sun god Ra, or sitting beside Osiris in the realm of judgment. The walls of the burial chamber became a map for the soul, a guide through the dangers of the next world. Everything about these monuments reflected precision and intention. The massive stones at the base supported smaller ones above, so that weight flowed naturally inward. Each stone was placed by human hands with care and coordination. The builders observed the stars and used tools like merkets and sighting rods to track their movement. They studied the yearly floods of the Nile to plan logistics. They counted food supplies, measured distances, and organized labor into teams with responsibilities and honor. The pyramid was both a scientific and a spiritual masterpiece. It embodied Egypt's understanding of the universe. Over time, the pyramid shape evolved into a powerful symbol across the entire culture. It appeared in religious amulets and in the pointed tops of obelisks. It defined the architecture of temples. It represented the primeval mound from which the first land emerged when creation began. It represented the sun's rays touching Earth. It represented eternity itself. No other structure could hold so many layers of meaning at once. Yet even as pyramids reached their greatest glory, they demanded more than any society could sustain forever. The largest pyramids required unimaginable effort. Rulers who came after Khufu built fewer and smaller monuments because the cost of greatness threatened the balance of the state. But for a brief span of centuries, Egypt declared to the world that kings walked between earth and sky, and that their power was carved into the bones of the planet. The Great Pyramid still stands as the tallest stone monument ever built by human hands. Its summit no longer gleams with the polished casing stones that once captured sunlight like a beacon. But its shape remains perfect enough that modern engineers study its geometry with astonishment. The pyramid was built not just to survive time, but to defy it. This chapter has traced the birth of the full stone pyramid and the belief that guided every block and every ritual. Egypt's pyramids were not simply tombs. They were resurrection engines designed to lift kings into the celestial realm. They were messages to the heavens that Egypt understood the cosmic order and claimed a place within it. And they were messages to us, the distant witnesses, proving that humans could turn faith into architecture that challenges the ages. The kings of Egypt did not choose the pyramid form by accident. They believed that the kingdom itself was a living reflection of cosmic balance. That balance was called Ma'at. Ma'at meant truth and justice, and the harmonious order that kept the universe from falling into chaos. When a pharaoh ruled well, he maintained Ma'at. When he died, Ma'at could collapse unless the proper rituals ensured his transformation into a divine protector. The pyramid was the ultimate safeguard. It anchored Ma'at into the earth as solidly as the stars held it in the sky. As long as the pyramid endured, the world would remember the sacred order it represented. Imagine the moment a pyramid was completed. Workers stepped back from the final stone. Priests performed ceremonies to awaken the monument with spiritual power. The smooth casing stones glimmered white under the sun, turning the pyramid into a radiant symbol visible for kilometers in every direction. It must have appeared almost supernatural. A human creation too perfect to seem ordinary. At sunrise and sunset, sunlight would flare across its sides, transforming it into a blazing mountain of light. It was a beacon calling the gods to witness the strength of Egypt. The Nile, flowing through the desert, was the lifeline of this civilization. Each year the river flooded, leaving rich soil that allowed crops to feed the population. Without that water, there would be no kingdom, no cities, and no monumental works. Pyramids were built on the west bank of the Nile, the land of the setting sun. This location symbolized the journey of the dead, as the sun, god Ra, traveled through the underworld each night. The west was the realm where life ended and eternity began. By placing the pyramids there, Egypt aligned its architecture with the daily cycle of life, death, and rebirth. Near each pyramid was a mortuary temple connected to the river by a long causeway. When the king died, priests carried his body along the water channel, purified it, and then guided it along the causeway to the temple. Rituals honored the transformation of the pharaoh into a divine being. Offerings were made food, water, and incense to sustain the spirit. Statues displayed the king in perfect form, reminding all who entered that the ruler did not truly vanish. His power changed shape. His presence moved from one realm to another. Deep inside the Great Pyramid lies the so-called King's Chamber, made of immense granite blocks that were transported from quarries far to the south. Above this chamber are layers of smaller spaces, acting as a protective system, distributing the tremendous weight of stone above so that the chamber would not collapse. Even if the builders did not write equations, the design is a sophisticated achievement in structural engineering. The alignment of passages allows a small shaft to point towards specific stars in the northern sky. Through this symbolic channel, the soul of the king could join the eternal lights that govern the heavens. The scale of these monuments still challenges modern understanding. How did Egypt move such weight? Researchers have found that wetting the desert sand reduces friction, allowing teams of workers to drag heavy sledges more easily. Wooden rollers and ramps likely helped raise stones higher and higher as the structure grew. The organization required to coordinate thousands of workers for years at a time reveals a society with advanced logistics, careful planning, and strong leadership. The pyramid was not built by luck, it was built by knowledge. Each block served a role in the great system. The lowest layers near the base were made of larger, heavier stones, forming a solid foundation. Higher levels used smaller stones, but they were still massive compared to human strength. The joints between blocks were crafted so precisely that thin tools cannot slide between them even today. This precision made the pyramids resistant to earthquakes and erosion. The choice to use stone instead of mud brick was a commitment to eternity. It signaled that the afterlife was too important to leave in the hands of materials that could decay. The workers who built these monuments were not forgotten by their peers. Villages discovered near the pyramids show evidence of planned housing, bakeries, breweries, and medical care. Skeletons reveal healed injuries, proving that workers were treated when accidents occurred. They were divided into teams with names that celebrated their role in the pharaoh's legacy. To build a pyramid was a source of pride. Workers believed they were shaping a future in which the king would guide and protect them, even after death. This shared purpose turned labor into belief carved into stone. As pyramid construction evolved, a new architectural idea emerged. Instead of massive visible pyramids, later kings experimented with hidden tombs carved into cliffs in the Valley of the Kings. These secret chambers protected royal burials from tomb robbers who had become bold over the centuries. Yet even during this shift, the pyramid shape did not vanish. It survived in symbolism in temple structures and in small pyramid-shaped markers above tomb entrances. The idea had become too powerful to abandon. It had woven itself into the identity of Egypt. The pyramids also recorded astronomical knowledge. The Egyptians observed the rising of the star Sirius, which signaled the coming flood of the Nile. They followed constellations that marked seasons and festivals. Their understanding of the sky became part of their architecture, ensuring that the king's journey to the afterlife was synchronized with celestial rhythms. In this way, the pyramid was a calendar, a compass, and a spiritual gateway all in one. Even more profound is the fact that the Egyptians believed the pyramid was the birthplace of creation. In their myths, the world began as a small mound of land rising out of endless waters. That first mound was sacred. The pyramid by its shape became a recreation of this divine origin. Every time a pyramid rose from the desert, it retold the story of the universe's beginning. It reminded people that existence springs from order, and that the king stands at the center of that order as mediator between gods and humanity. We often think of pyramids as silent and unchanging, yet for the Egyptians they were dynamic. They echoed with ritual music. They hosted festivals that renewed the bond between ruler and people. They were the stage upon which the most important acts of national faith were performed. To stand in the courtyard of a pyramid temple was to stand in the focus of Egypt's energy, where earth and sky touched and where life and death intertwined. The legacy of these creations is hard to grasp. They have outlived every language once spoken beside them. They have watched countless generations come and go. They have remained when kingdoms shifted and religions changed. They remind us that humans dared to think in terms of eternity. They remind us that belief can move stone. In the heart of every pyramid lies a single certainty. Something mattered here. Someone believed that the limits of mortality could be challenged. Someone believed that the king would rise again. And for thousands of years, the stone keeps telling that story to anyone willing to listen. Over the centuries, Egypt's pyramids changed from experiments into masterpieces, yet each carried a message that reached beyond the life of a single king. The message declared that Egypt was eternal, that its ruler was chosen by the gods, that the order of the cosmos flowed directly through the land and its people. When we look at these structures today, we see the shape of a belief system so complete that it could be carved into the earth itself. Consider the Great Pyramid of Khufu, once covered in gleaming limestone that reflected sunlight like a star fallen to the desert. Travelers from distant lands would have seen its radiant sides shining in the heat. They would have known they were approaching a civilization unlike any other. This structure was more than its blocks of stone. It was a political statement, a scientific declaration, and a spiritual beacon. It proved that Egypt had mastered the physical world and aligned that mastery with sacred purpose. Even the placement of the pyramids on the Giza plateau was intentional. They stand beside the Nile and face the rising and setting of the sun. The Great Pyramid, the Pyramid of Khafra and the Pyramid of Menkaure form a pattern that echoes a celestial arrangement. Many researchers suggest that their layout resembles the three stars of Orion's belt, a constellation connected to the god Osiris, lord of the afterlife. If this interpretation is correct, then the pyramids were not only pointing to the sky, they were recreating part of the sky upon the earth, ensuring that the pharaoh's soul could find its way through the heavens. Inside these pyramids, the architecture becomes even more symbolic. The passages are narrow and angled, with chambers hidden deep within the massive structure. Walking through them today feels like traveling through the spaces between worlds. In the darkness, one can imagine priests lighting torches, performing sacred rites, and sealing the king within his eternal vessel. Once the burial was complete, the entrances were blocked. The pyramid was closed like a cocoon waiting for transformation. Egyptians believed that the king needed protection as he crossed into the afterlife. The walls of many burial chambers were covered in magical spells carved into stone. These pyramid texts were written to guide the pharaoh through dangers and to remind the cosmic forces of his divine identity. They speak in powerful phrases of ascent and rebirth. They describe the king flying up to join the stars or sailing with the sun god across the sky. These words were more than poetry. They were thought to activate real forces that could lift the soul beyond death. One of the most remarkable features of Egyptian pyramids is the sense of precision they embody. The sides are aligned so closely to true north that the tiny difference could not be improved easily, even with modern tools. The base is almost perfectly level across ground that rises and falls in subtle ways. This accuracy reveals deep observation of nature. The builders watched the motion of stars and the movement of shadows. They created instruments to measure straight lines and right angles. Every step of construction was a collaboration between human effort and celestial guidance. The pyramids did not exist in isolation. They were part of a larger system of temples, rituals, and administrative structures. These monuments helped unify a nation that stretched along the Nile for nearly 1,000 kilometers. People who might never meet the king directly could still feel connected to his presence through the pyramids. These structures reinforced the idea that the pharaoh's rule was woven into the very fabric of existence. To question the king would be to question the stars themselves. Still, no monument can completely protect against the ambitions of the living. In later periods, tomb robbers broke into the chambers of many pyramids, searching for gold and jewels buried with the kings. They stole treasure, but they could not steal meaning. Even emptied of their riches, the pyramids continued to speak. Their forms still carried the story of Egypt's cosmic vision. Their stones still held the memory of a people who understood how to merge engineering with eternity. Over time, new dynasties rose and fell, and the focus of royal burial shifted away from massive pyramids. Yet the influence of these ancient forms never vanished. Later rulers built temples crowned with pyramid-shaped tops. Obelisks pointed sharply toward the heavens, continuing the visual language of ascent. The pyramid became a symbol that lived beyond its original era. It became a sign that pointed to the most powerful truths a civilization could express. When the Greek historian Herodotus visited Egypt, he was told of the enormous effort required to build the Great Pyramid. He described a project that lasted for decades and engaged tens of thousands of workers. Even if his numbers were exaggerated, his awe was real. The same sense of wonder remains today. No matter how closely we measure or study the pyramids, something about them escapes complete explanation. They feel like messages written in a language we almost understand, but not entirely. In the modern world, the Great Pyramid is one of the few ancient wonders still standing. It anchors time. It reminds us that human ambition once reached far beyond the limits of everyday survival. It reminds us that belief, when shared by an entire society, can move stones heavier than imagination. The pyramid becomes a mirror reflecting what humans are capable of when they build not just for themselves but for the future. Egypt's pyramids reveal that architecture can be a conversation across centuries. The builders asked the universe to remember them. The universe has answered. Their message still stands, still pointing upward, still carrying the weight of Mut, still claiming that kings do not die. They ascend. The story of Egypt's pyramids is only one part of the global message of monumental architecture. While Egypt perfected the form, other civilizations looked upon the desert sun from different lands and reached the same conclusion. Stone can speak. Stone can lead souls to the heavens. Stone can carry a message past the breaking of kingdoms. To understand how that message spread across the world without ships or letters, we must now follow the Nile south into the lands of Nubia, where new rulers rose who looked upon the pyramids of Egypt and claimed that power for themselves. In the silent heat of the desert, the pyramids rise like frozen waves of stone. Their shape is unchanging, but the forces that created them were alive with complexity. Egypt did not become a land of eternal monuments by accident. It became one because its rulers understood that power must be anchored to something stronger than a human lifetime. The pyramid was the perfect anchor. It turned political authority into architecture. It transformed belief into a physical structure that could not be ignored. The pyramid was stability made visible. Egypt endured as a kingdom for longer than most civilizations in human history. This endurance was rooted in the concept of Ma'at, the sacred balancing force that held all things in harmony. Ma'at ensured that the Nile would flood at the right moment, that crops would grow, and that the stars would follow their ancient paths. The pharaoh was seen as the guardian of Ma'at. If he protected this balance, the universe would remain orderly. If he failed, chaos would rise. The pyramid proclaimed that Ma'at was secure. Its perfect lines were a promise that the world was in alignment. Every stone had political significance. The mere act of building meant that the kingdom had enough food to support giant workforces. It meant that an organized system existed to gather crops and distribute supplies. It meant that the people trusted their ruler enough to give their labor to his project. In this way, the pyramid became a record of economic strength. It documented a stable society more clearly than writing ever could. Even if texts fade under wind and sand, the stones remain unbroken evidence of prosperity. Egyptians did not build pyramids only for spiritual reasons. They also built them to command loyalty. Workers came from villages across the land, spending seasons near the construction sites. They lived together, ate together, and labored together. Bonds formed between people who would otherwise remain strangers. Those bonds reinforced a collective identity. When they returned home, they carried stories of the king's greatness. They spread the belief that the ruler held divine favor. The pyramid created unity not only through its final form, but through the process of building it. Every block of limestone spoken by hammer and chisel reflects a degree of organization that astonishes modern researchers. There were overseers who planned each stage, architects who measured the angle of the walls, and scribes who recorded how much food and water each team received. The state became stronger by solving the challenges of construction. Roads were built from quarries to building sites. Administrative centers expanded to handle the complexity of the project. Skills were learned that later improved agriculture, mining, and trade. The pyramid became a training ground for civilization. This blueprint of stability extended beyond the desert into the political identity of Egypt itself. The very idea of kingship transformed through pyramid building. Before the rise of the pyramids, rulers were remembered mostly as leaders of tribes or powerful clans. After the pyramids, they were remembered as sons of gods destined for the stars. The massive tombs changed how rulers saw themselves and how others saw them. They elevated the monarchy into a divine institution. A king was no longer one leader among many. He was the axis on which the world turned. The architecture reflected this shift. Each pyramid complex included temples where rituals continued long after the king's death. Priests performed ceremonies to sustain the pharaoh in the afterlife. Offerings were presented daily to ensure that his divine spirit could protect the kingdom from unseen harm. The kingship became immortal. The pyramid was its body and the priests were its heartbeat. Even as the humans who wore the crown changed, the concept of eternal rule endured. Trade routes expanded under the pressure of these monumental projects. Egypt needed high-quality stone from distant quarries and copper tools from mines in the Sinai. Boats traveled the Nile carrying supplies. Caravans crossed deserts guided by stars, and the knowledge passed down by generations. These movements linked every region of the kingdom. The more connected Egypt became, the more secure the throne remained. The pyramid therefore functioned like a stone that rippled power outward in every direction. In a society driven by Ma'at, even the smallest detail of construction represented cosmic responsibility. The alignment to the cardinal directions ensured that the pyramid stood in harmony with the universe. The precision of its sides ensured that the symbol of permanence never appeared flawed. If a structure that reached for eternity showed even a slight disorder, it would send a dangerous message. It would suggest that chaos might someday win. The builders never allowed such a suggestion to take form in stone. The pyramid was a declaration that the future would be shaped by the present. Egypt did not believe in chance. It believed in intention. When a king ordered a pyramid, he was not constructing a monument to his past, but to his destiny. His afterlife was intertwined with the future of the kingdom. As long as his pyramid endured, Egypt would remain whole. The people had a stake in this eternal vision. Their families would continue to flourish under the protection of the divine ruler, whose spirit never slept. Even in times when crops failed or conflict threatened the edges of the kingdom, the pyramid stood unmoved. It reminded the nation that stability had been achieved once and could be achieved again. It was a silent reassurance, a towering symbol that the structures of life were too strong to collapse. The pyramid did not solve problems on its own, but it gave the people confidence to solve them. It reminded them of unity when division crept in. That memory may be the most powerful tool any ruler can possess. The pyramids show us that architecture can create belief. When a structure becomes the anchor of a culture, people build their lives around it. They align their bodies, their calendars, and their hopes with its perfect shape. Stability is not an accident. It is a construction. And Egypt built stability with stone. If a society wishes to endure, it must teach each new generation why the world is arranged the way it is. Stories can do this. Rituals can do this. But nothing teaches more clearly than something immense that cannot be ignored. The pyramids were Egypt's greatest teachers. They explained without words that order exists, that leadership is sacred, and that the kingdom is built upon a foundation no disaster can erase. Even a child seeing the pyramid skyline of Giza would understand that someone powerful must keep such structures standing. The message was simple. The ruler upholds the universe. The universe upholds the ruler. Together they create stability. What lay inside the pyramids mattered just as much. Beneath tons of stone, the burial chamber held the pharaoh's body, and objects meant to serve him in the next life. Gold, precious oils, chests of food, statues of servants and gods, all placed with intention. These treasures were not signs of wealth alone. They were symbols that prosperity should follow the king into eternity. If the rulers were blessed forever, then the land would remain blessed forever. Thus the pyramid became a storehouse not only of objects but of promises. Egypt understood that power must be visible to survive. A law that cannot be seen can be forgotten. A king who cannot be seen can be doubted. The pyramid solved this problem with elegance. Its shape demanded attention from across the desert. It dominated every horizon. When caravans approached from distant lands, the first sign of Egypt's power was the peak of a pyramid, rising above the sand like a star anchored to the earth. No one entered the kingdom unaware of who ruled it. The pyramid also served as a calendar. Its perfect geometry, aligned with the cardinal directions, allowed the paths of sunlight and starlight to mark the seasons. At certain moments in the year, shadows ran straight along its edges, like rulers drawn across the sand by celestial hands. Priests observed these alignments to predict floods and plan ceremonies. In this way, the pyramid helped organize life. It brought the rhythms of the cosmos into the rhythms of daily existence. Time itself obeyed the structure of the state. Engineering challenges also shaped Egypt's identity. To lift stones weighing more than several elephants required creativity and teamwork. Crews hauled blocks up ramps of earth that grew higher as the pyramid rose. Water reduced friction beneath wooden sledges. Levers and ropes amplified human strength. The coordination needed for such an effort trained the nation in logistics and planning. Every successful pyramid made Egypt more capable of solving future problems. Knowledge deepened with each generation. The land became more skilled, because its rulers dared to build on a scale that tested the limits of human ability. Food production improved as well. Workers had to be fed. Bakers produced countless loaves every day. Brewers created jars of beer to nourish and refresh laborers. Farmers planted enough grain to sustain both themselves and those working beside the pyramids. This required careful timing and distribution. Government officials learned to count, record, and allocate resources with increasing precision. Bureaucracy grew not from ambition for control, but from the practical need to feed thousands building stone mountains. The system that supported the pyramids eventually supported the nation. Art and writing flourished under this pressure for organization. Scribes recorded supplies, tasks, and rituals. Artists carved scenes that showed the pharaoh receiving offerings from gods. These images taught people how to understand their place in the cosmic order. The pyramid complex became a visual encyclopedia of belief. Every carved figure was a reminder that harmony flowed downward from the divine through the king into the land and people. Beauty was used as architecture for the soul. It guided emotion and reinforced loyalty. Trade routes stretched far beyond Egypt's borders. Ships sailed the Mediterranean carrying stone and goods. Caravans reached Nubia for gold and ebony. Journeys into the Sinai brought copper and turquoise. With each voyage, Egypt grew more connected to the world. Communication with distant lands brought new ideas and resources. The pyramid served as the center of a growing web. It drew wealth inward like a magnet of stone. The more Egypt built, the more it became a power recognized beyond its deserts. Even failure contributed to stability. Some pyramids show signs of experiments gone wrong. The so-called bent pyramid of Sneferu reveals a change in angle partway up its sides. The structure grew too steep too quickly, and engineers adjusted to prevent collapse. Instead of hiding the mistake, Egypt learned from it. That knowledge led to the perfect shape of the Great Pyramid soon after. Imperfection became a stepping stone toward eternal achievement. This willingness to adapt while still reaching for perfection strengthened the kingdom's resilience. Religion and politics intertwined tightly in these structures. People did not see labor on a pyramid as service to a mortal ruler. They saw it as service to the cosmos itself. To build was to worship. To worship was to protect the order of existence. This sense of divine participation motivated workers more deeply than any payment could. Even those far from the top of society felt their hands had touched the eternal. They felt included in the machinery of forever. The pyramid stood as a reminder that life extends beyond death. The pharaoh's body lay within the stone heart of the monument, but his influence radiated outward like sunlight. His spirit remained active. His ability to intercede with gods continued. People knew that when misfortune struck, they could pray not only to the gods but also to the divine rulers, who still watched over Egypt from the stars. Stability therefore lived both in stone and in faith. The dead king supported the living king, ensuring continuous order across generations. In times of uncertainty, the pyramids did not waver. They were unchanging silhouettes at the edge of every sunrise. They told the people that Egypt had prevailed before and would prevail again. They defined identity. To be Egyptian was to belong to a civilization strong enough to command eternity. The pyramids held that truth in every angle and every shadow. As we walk among these monuments today, we still feel that intended calm. Their silence is not absence, it is authority. Their stillness is not emptiness, it is confidence. They continue to show how stability is built, with purpose that lasts longer than fear, with architecture that teaches belief, and with communities united toward a single hopeful future. Beneath the surface of the pyramids, there is another structure less visible, but equally powerful. It is the structure of trust. To build something that would require decades of labor, people needed confidence that their work had meaning. They needed to believe that the ruler they served would protect them and the land they loved. The pyramid became a silent contract. The pharaoh promised stability and prosperity. The people promised loyalty and effort. Each stone was a signature in that agreement. The completion of a pyramid showed that both sides kept their word. This contract remained strong because the pyramid made power feel real. Many rulers throughout history have claimed divine authority, but their words vanished in the wind. Egypt made divinity solid. The pyramid stood as proof that the pharaoh had a connection to forces beyond the human world. The sheer scale of these monuments made doubt seem impossible. If the pharaoh were not guided by gods, how else could such a thing be raised? In this way, architecture became evidence. Belief became grounded in the very stones that towered over the desert. The pyramid also taught discipline. It demanded precise planning over long periods of time. No single generation owned the project of eternity. Fathers worked beside sons, and both knew that their labor was part of something larger than their lifetimes. The stone mountain would finish only if the nation remained united. Thus, the pyramid encouraged patience and cooperation. It trained society to think not only of the present harvest, but of distant futures in which their descendants would still walk beneath the same sun. The presence of pyramids influenced how Egypt saw its neighbors. Outside threats seemed smaller when viewed beside monuments that touched the horizon. Armies from other lands could march into the desert, but their ambitions would be dwarfed immediately by the sight of Giza. The pyramids projected power far more effectively than armies alone. They communicated that Egypt was unshakable. Introducing fear into such a nation would not be easy. Conquerors would have to defeat not only soldiers, but the very idea of eternity. This psychological effect extended inward as well. Even in times of internal strain, the pyramids reminded Egyptians of their heritage. They were raised on the belief that their land had once constructed mountains. That knowledge instilled confidence in national recovery. A famine or political struggle could feel temporary when the symbols of eternity remained unchanged at the edge of the desert. The pyramids were the heartbeat of identity. As long as they stood, Egypt could rediscover its strength. The lessons carved into these structures even shaped morality. Mut was not only a cosmic law, it was a code of human behavior. to be just and honest, to treat others fairly, to offer help to the weak. These values were considered necessary to keep order in the world. When a ruler died, his heart would be weighed against the feather of Maat to decide whether he deserved eternal life. This belief guided how leaders governed and how people treated one another. The pyramid ensured that this ethical system had a physical presence. It reminded everyone that justice was not a suggestion. It was a foundation as essential as the bedrock beneath the monument. Egypt did not choose to build upward by accident. The vertical climb of the pyramid represented a struggle for higher purpose. Each step of the structure suggested progress, improvement, and the rise of civilization from simple origins to divine heights. At the same time, the broad base showed that such progress required strong grounding. A society without deep roots could never support such great heights. The shape reflected the balance that Egypt believed kept humanity in harmony with the universe: wide foundations and lofty goals, stability and aspiration, earth and sky. Eventually, the era of giant pyramids faded. Later pharaohs built different kinds of tombs and focused on new expressions of power. But the idea of stability forged in the Pyramid Age never disappeared. It continued to influence government, religion, and daily life. Even when politics shifted, the memory of those stone mountains remained a guide. Egypt always remembered that it once created the shape of eternity. That memory was enough to steady the kingdom through long cycles of change. Visitors from Greece and Rome saw these structures and marveled at the achievement. They asked how a society could maintain order long enough to complete such colossal works. They wrote of Egypt as a place where time itself seemed to obey the will of its rulers. The pyramids turned the desert into a classroom for distant cultures. They taught that stability builds greatness and greatness builds stability. The message traveled across continents long after the stones were set. Standing before the pyramids today, the desert wind carries a silence that feels intentional. It is not emptiness, it is reflection. The structure does not speak loudly. It does not need to. Its form tells a story that every civilization understands. Stability is not granted. It is created. It is shaped with effort and defended with unity. It requires vision that reaches beyond one season, one lifetime, or even one age. The pyramid is the physical memory of that truth. Egypt discovered that architecture could preserve not only bodies but ideas. In those ancient stones, we still see the original blueprint for stability. The blueprint that says foundation first, belief second, monument third. The blueprint that declares order must be built on trust, and trust must be visible. The blueprint that every powerful society still follows whether it realizes it or not. But Egypt was not alone in turning stone into a message of power and promise. To the south, a neighboring kingdom watched the rise of these pyramids and learned from them. Nubia and the land of Kush saw the stone mountains and claimed the same divine right for their own rulers. They built their own pyramids with their own identity, adding new voices to the ancient message that human life can reach beyond death. South of Egypt, the Nile flows through a region of rocky cliffs and golden sands. Here another civilization rose and looked northward to the pyramids that glittered in the sun. This land was Nubia, and at its heart stood the kingdom of Kush. For thousands of years, Kush and Egypt were neighbors and rivals shaped by the same river and the same relentless desert winds. Kush admired Egypt's monuments, but did not merely copy them. It transformed the pyramid into a symbol of its own kingship, its own gods, and its own identity. In the end, Kush built more pyramids than Egypt ever did. Over 200 structures rise from the sands of Sudan, like a forest of peaks pointing toward the heavens. The relationship between Egypt and Kush changed constantly through the ages. Sometimes they traded and shared ideas. Sometimes they fought for control of the Nile's riches. Egypt coveted gold, ivory, and exotic goods from lands farther south. Kush sought the prestige and knowledge that came from the north. Through centuries of connection, the two cultures influenced one another in every part of life, in weapons, in language, in art, and most of all in the architecture of power. The kings of Kush saw Egypt's pyramids and understood the message they carried. They too wished to declare that their rulers were divine and eternal. In the city of Napata near the sacred mountain Jebel Barkal, the Kushite kings embraced the ancient beliefs of Egypt. They worshipped gods that linked both lands. They adopted traditions of divine kingship. And they decided that when their rulers died, they must be honored with pyramids. Yet the Kushite version followed its own vision. Their pyramids were steeper, with sharper angles rising dramatically from narrow bases, while Egyptian pyramids spread wide across the desert like sunlit mountains. Kushite pyramids thrust upward like spears aimed at the heavens. The shape suggested a more urgent ascent, a faster path to eternity. Kushite builders placed their pyramids at necropolises near their royal cities. The most famous sites today are at El Kuru, Nuri, and Meroe, where the desert still guards the graves of kings and queens. Each pyramid marked a burial chamber below ground, accessed by stairways carved into the earth. Inside, walls once glowed with painted scenes that guided the royal spirit through the afterlife. Statues and sacred objects accompanied the dead so that they would not travel alone. These tombs were not just resting places. They were launch points for souls who were believed to join the gods and watch over the kingdom from the sky. Kush reigned over a powerful empire that at one time even conquered Egypt itself. Kings of Kush once wore the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt and ruled from the throne of Pharaoh in Thebes. During this period, the architecture and ritual of Kush and Egypt became deeply intertwined. Pyramids in Kush used Egyptian symbols, and temples in Egypt bore the influence of Kushite rulers who understood both worlds. For a time, the message of eternity flowed north and south through the Nile Valley, with a strength that united two ancient cultures into one. Yet Kush never lost its own voice. Even when it honored Egyptian gods, it shaped their stories to match its own traditions. The lion-headed god Apedemach became a guardian of kings carved into temples at Meroe. His fierce strength protected the rulers as they traveled from human life to eternal power. The decorative style of Kushite pyramids showed bold patterns and carvings unique to the Nubian imagination. In every detail, the monument said, "We are like Egypt, but not the same. Our power comes from our own spirit." The building of pyramids in Kush continued long after Egypt stopped constructing them. When Egypt turned to hidden tombs in cliffs and underground chambers, Kush still believed that the visible shape mattered. Their pyramids rose as late as the first centuries before the Common Era, and even into the early centuries after. The message of these later structures remained unchanged. The ruler is eternal, the kingdom is blessed, and the earth must carry that truth in stone. That faith outlasted the civilization that inspired it. Over time, the sands of Sudan buried many pyramids. Their pointed tips emerged like shadows at sunset, until archaeologists uncovered full structures beneath the dunes. These discoveries astonished the modern world. People knew of Egypt's pyramids, from ancient writings and endless stories, but few expected to find so many pyramids, stretching across the desert far to the south. Their existence rewrote history. It proved that the idea of the pyramid was not a single expression limited to one land. It was a shared language of power along the Nile, spoken fluently by different voices. The construction of Kushite pyramids reveals the strength of their monarchy and the devotion of their people. Moving stone and shaping architecture in such harsh environments required tremendous organization. Workers labored under blazing heat with few resources, yet the results remain impressive even in ruins. The stones were cut with accuracy, the alignments were intentional, the tombs beneath show careful planning and rich decoration. Everything speaks of a kingdom that understood the power of permanence. Even when the Meroitic script of Kush remains only partially deciphered, the pyramids offer a message that needs no translation. They communicate royalty, belief, and connection to the divine. They show that Kush was not merely a reflection of Egypt, but a civilization confident enough to borrow greatness and transform it into its own legacy. Each pyramid stands as a testament to independence and ambition. It is a declaration that Nubian kings ruled not in the shadow of Egypt, but alongside the same gods, under the same eternal sky. The pyramids of Kush remind us that cultural ideas travel not only through conquest or conversation, but through observation and inspiration. A shape seen glimmering on a distant horizon can spark a vision that reshapes an entire society. When Kush built pyramids, It joined the global dialogue of stone. It added new lines to the message humanity carved into the earth, that power seeks immortality, that leaders hold meaning beyond their breath, and that the sky is always the final destination. The story of Kush is a story of resilience. While Egypt's deserts hold a few grand pyramids spread across a wide plateau, Kush filled the Nile Valley of Sudan with pyramid after pyramid until the horizon itself seemed sharpened into a row of stone peaks. Each new ruler added to this forest of memory. Each monument said that power did not vanish when a king died. Instead, it flowed into the stones that guarded his spirit and into the hearts of the people who continued to live beneath his legacy. These pyramids became a map of authority traced across time. They showed where kings were born, where they ruled, and where they returned to the earth at the end of their journey. The royal cemeteries of Kush changed location as capitals moved. The earliest pyramids rose at El Kuru, where kings and queens were buried near their most sacred mountain. Later, the necropolis shifted to Nuri and finally settled at Meroe, where desert winds now whisper through narrow passages leading underground. These sites tell the story of a kingdom that adapted and expanded. They reveal moments of triumph and transition, yet through everything the pyramid remained constant. It was a thread tying centuries together with the same shape and meaning. Inside the pyramids of Kush, the tombs are decorated with paintings that show the deceased king standing before gods who judge and protect him. These paintings glow with vibrant colors that once flickered in torchlight during rituals. Scenes show boats sailing the sky, falcons soaring above the world, and offerings passed from the living to the dead so that the royal spirit would remain strong. The artwork is filled with symbols of rebirth. The king transforms into a being of light, traveling upward toward the eternal. The pyramid became the cocoon for this transformation. Life ended inside stone so that new life could begin. One of the most striking differences between Kushite pyramids and those of Egypt is the scale of the burial chambers. In Kush, the tomb is often found beneath the pyramid, rather than deep within the core of the structure. A stairway descends from the surface, leading into the earth as if the journey to the gods begins by first returning to the origins of existence. The sharp, pointed pyramid above acts like an arrow directing the soul upward once the sacred rituals are complete. This design expresses a belief that the path to eternity involves movement through both darkness and light. Death is not the final drop into shadow. It is the first step toward rising again. Women also found their place among these stone monuments. In Kush, queens held real power. Some ruled as sole monarchs. Their pyramids stand beside those of kings as equals in size and significance. This reveals a culture where leadership was not limited by gender, but guided by lineage, faith, and strength. The burial goods found in queens' tombs display their authority. Jewelry, ivory, gold, and symbols of divine protection show that women shaped the destiny of the kingdom. When a queen was laid to rest in her pyramid, she carried symbols that affirmed her eternal rule. As trade flourished, Kush connected Africa to the Mediterranean and to lands even farther beyond. Caravans brought gold that shone like sunlight trapped in rock. Ivory carried the memory of ancient forests. Exotic animals accompanied diplomats as gifts proving the richness of the kingdom. Every successful exchange increased the prestige of Kush. The pyramids became marks of wealth earned honestly through exchange and exploration. They told neighboring lands that Kush did not depend on Egypt. It thrived through its own networks and ambition. Despite this strength, Kush faced challenges from shifting politics and repeated conflicts. Egypt sometimes conquered Nubia, and Kush sometimes conquered Egypt in return. Borders moved like drifting sand, yet the pyramids grounded the identity of Kush in place and time. When foreign powers tried to erase or dominate the region, the pyramids reminded the people who they were. They reminded them that kings long before had stood upon sacred ground and declared their lineage eternal. Pyramids turned memory into armor. In later centuries, the kingdom of Kush centered its power at Meroe, where iron manufacturing transformed the economy. Kushite blacksmiths forged tools and weapons that made them feared and respected by enemies near and far. Blacksmiths were believed to harness the fire of gods. They shaped the bones of the earth into symbols of strength. The pyramids of Meroe stand close to the city, where furnaces once roared day and night. The living fire of iron and the silent strength of stone supported one another. War secured the kingdom's borders, and monuments secured its spirit. Eventually, Kush declined under the pressure of outside forces. A civilization called Aksum rose to the east, growing in power. Trade routes changed. The once thriving city of Meroe slipped into silence, and the sands crept upward until they buried the lower walls of the pyramids. Travelers in later centuries walked through empty desert landscapes without knowing that entire royal cities lay just beneath their feet. Time tried to erase what had been carved into stone, but even buried, the pyramids continued to endure. When archaeologists finally uncovered the pyramids of Kush, the world felt a shock of recognition. Here was proof that Egypt had not been the only kingdom to send its rulers into eternity along a path of stone. Here was evidence that another people possessed the same ambition and the same sacred vision. The discovery forced historians to rethink the story of the Nile. Power did not flow only from north to south. It moved both ways. Ideas did not originate in one land alone. They grew wherever humans dreamed of touching the sky. Now the pyramids of Nubia stand revealed again, though erosion has softened some edges, and treasure hunters have left scars. They remain fierce in their purpose. The sky still sees their points. The wind still draws sharp lines along their angles. They still speak the message carved by the hands of kings and queens. That message says our power lives forever. Our faith reaches beyond the horizon. Our identity stands even when time tries to bury it. In the quiet of desert evenings, the pyramids of Kush cast long shadows that stretch like pathways into the past. They call us closer. They ask us to imagine what the living saw and believed. They remind us that human aspiration does not stop at borders or oceans. Wherever people gaze upward searching for meaning, they shape the earth to match their dreams. There is a quiet strength in the pyramids of Kush that becomes clearer the longer one looks at them. At first, their scale seems smaller than the giants of Giza. Their sides are narrower, and their height rises more sharply into the sky. But the closer one stands, the more the geometry feels like intention rather than limitation. The steep angle draws the eye upward fast, as if the monument refuses to let the gaze linger on Earth. It encourages a direct leap from stone to stars. The Kushite pyramids do not merely hope for eternity, they reach for it. Although many of them have been damaged by time and human greed, the remains of these structures still claim dignity. One can walk through the clusters of Meroe and feel surrounded by a chorus of royal spirits. Their peaks form a constellation of stone on the desert floor. Each one marks a life once wrapped in ceremony and reverence. Even broken tips cannot erase the meaning held within their foundations. The monuments stand in the desert as guardians who continue to look outward across the horizon for threats to their legacy. It is easy to imagine the funerary rituals that once echoed between these sharp walls. Priests chanting prayers carried forward from ancient memory, torches lighting the night and casting flickering shadows across painted scenes inside the burial chambers. Incense rising into the air as a signal to the unseen world. The sound of slow footsteps descending into the earth carrying the body of a ruler who was believed to be only moments away from transforming into a divine protector. The pyramid did not end a life. It launched a new existence. Kush understood that power required storytelling, just as Egypt did. But the stories of Kush celebrated the desert in their own voice. The harsh environment that shaped this land also shaped the courage of its people. They built cities where it seemed none should stand. They forged their identity from stone and fire. They developed a script of their own, the Meroitic writing system, though its full meaning today remains partly locked behind time. Even without translation, the language carved onto pyramid walls shows a culture confident enough to record its thoughts for a future audience. It trusted that someone someday would listen. Archaeologists who study Kush uncover more than artifacts. They uncover proof that history is never a single story told from a single city. For a long era, scholars focused almost entirely on Egypt as the center of power along the Nile. The pyramids of Kush reveal a second center with its own gravitational pull. It was a kingdom that adopted, adapted, and advanced. It did not merely repeat what Egypt invented, it contributed to the world's understanding of how architecture can claim eternity. Each discovery expands the map of human achievement. The art found in the tombs of Kush shows a blending of traditions. Egyptian gods appear, but with Nubian features or garments that reflect local culture. Scenes show kings embracing lions or being crowned by deities unique to the south. The afterlife imagined in these paintings is vast and filled with landscapes familiar to the people of Kush. These details prove that even when using the pyramid form, the kingdom never surrendered its own vision of what divine power looked like. The structure became a shared symbol, but the spirit remained uniquely Nubian. In some tombs, chariots, jewels, and vessels of metal lay beside the king or queen, ready to serve in the next world. Items of great value were not buried for display but for purpose. The rulers expected to ride again, to dine again, to lead again. Eternity was not a distance one traveled alone without possessions or identity. It was a continuation of the royal duty that defined their lives. The pyramid ensured that the transition into the sky did not erase their greatness. The kings and queens would remain exactly what they were meant to be, shepherds of their people and anchors of authority. The desert that surrounds these monuments plays a role in their power. During the day, sand and sunlight shimmer like liquid gold beneath the pointed peaks. At night, the sky comes alive with countless stars glittering above dark silhouettes of stone. The line between earth and heaven blurs. Ancient people undoubtedly stood in that place and felt the presence of the gods pressing close. The pyramid there becomes both a landmark for the living and a lighthouse for the spirits who travel the night. When the stars turn overhead, they seem to acknowledge the pointed stones that reach toward them. Kush eventually faded from the center of history's attention. The capitals emptied, the quarries fell silent, the script forgotten. Yet the pyramids refused to let the memory of this kingdom vanish. They waited, they endured. When explorers and scholars finally reached the sands of Nubia, they found a message preserved by silence, a message that said we too believed in eternity. We too commanded stone to rise in the name of kingship. We too believe that the soul does not fall into darkness, but climbs toward the radiant sky. The deeper lesson of Kush's pyramids is that human ambition does not always follow the path carved by more famous neighbors. Ideas travel like travelers on the Nile, shifting direction with currents of influence, but each land shapes the idea to fit its own heart. The pyramid in Kush carries the same universal meaning that appears in Egypt and later in other parts of the world. It speaks of leadership reaching beyond death, of society made visible through architecture, and of belief etched into the earth. Yet it delivers this message with a voice fully its own. When the wind moves through these ruins, it feels as if it is lifting memories from the sand. Stories gather in the air like grains swirling in sunlight. They remind us that no civilization stands alone in the great effort to understand existence. The builders of Kush looked upward, just as the builders of Egypt did. They saw the stars and decided that humanity must rise to meet them. They shaped stone into eternal poetry. And even now, that poetry continues to speak. We have followed the pyramid from Egypt to Kush along the same river that nourished two civilizations. But the idea of building mountains for kings appears far from this valley as well. Across an ocean, another continent gave rise to pyramids that were not tombs but living temples. They were built not for silent burial, but for the gathering of crowds and the marking of time by the stars. Their stairs climbed like paths towards sacred heights where humans could approach the divine with open eyes. Across the vast ocean from the Nile, another world rose beneath a different sun. In this land, the earth itself seemed alive with green forests and smoking volcanoes. Here, in the heart of the Americas, people looked upward and felt the same ancient pull that had once guided the hands of Egyptian builders. They gathered stones and clay and built monuments that climbed toward the heavens. These were not tombs hidden from the living. They were stages raised above city plazas where entire communities stood witness to rituals that bound life to the universe. They were mountains built by humans so the gods would have a place to walk among mortals. The earliest of these structures towered over a city that remains mysterious even now. Teotihuacan, the place where gods were believed to be made, covered an area that stretched farther than the eye could take in. Its streets formed perfect right angles. Its central avenue pointed towards sacred peaks on the horizon. And at the core of that avenue stood the Pyramid of the Sun, a colossal structure built from millions of tons of stone and earth. From the base to the summit, the steps climbed like a rising heartbeat, each level narrowing as it approached the sky. When crowds gathered for ceremonies, their voices echoed through the plaza like wind shaking distant leaves. They believed that here the world itself had first awakened. They believed that the pyramid was the very spot where creation began, and where it might begin again when the cycles of time demanded rebirth. The Pyramid of the Sun and its companion, the Pyramid of the Moon, were aligned with celestial events. At key times in the year, sunlight struck the steps in patterns that mirrored the motion of the heavens. The people of Teotihuacan understood that the sky and the seasons controlled the fate of crops and life. Their architecture became a calendar written in shadow and light. When the sun stood at particular points in the sky, the rituals that sustained existence had to be performed. The pyramids were machines that measured sacred time. They told the community when to plant, when to honor the gods, and when to prepare for change. Unlike the pyramids of Egypt, these structures were not burial chambers for one soul. They were communal. They were built to bring large numbers of people together to watch sanctified drama unfold. Priests in feathered garments climbed the stairs carrying offerings for gods associated with rain, fire, combat, and life. Smoke rose from the summit and drifted over the city like a veil between worlds. The pyramids served as bridges between ground and sky, between the mortal breath and the breath of cosmic power. They were doorways not for the dead, but for the living. The Maya took this idea and shaped it with their own vision. In the dense jungles of the Yucatan and the mountains of Guatemala, they built stepped pyramids that rose above treetops like islands of stone. Cities such as Tikal and Palenque placed their pyramids at the heart of wide ceremonial centers. Each pyramid staircase led upward to a temple room where rulers performed the sacred duties of kingship. The Maya believed that their leaders were chosen by gods, and that the rituals performed upon these heights sustained the balance of the universe. By climbing the steps, the king symbolically ascended the world tree that connected the underworld to the sky. From the summit, he could speak with ancestors and deities, as if no distance separated them. These pyramids often held tombs deep inside their cores, yet the burial was not the structure's primary purpose. The tomb provided a place for the spirit of the ruler, but the temple above gave that spirit a voice visible to everyone. The pyramid supported both functions of kingship, the physical rule during life, and the spiritual protection after death. When a king passed away, a new temple was built on top of the old one, layer by layer, generation after generation. The structure grew like a living mountain. It recorded history in its rising shape. Each level remembered a reign. Each step carried the story of a civilization forward. The Maya were masters of astronomy and mathematics. They observed Venus and tracked its bright wanderings through the sky. They noted the cycles of the moon and the equinoxes, when night and day were equal in strength. They aligned pyramids so that on certain mornings the rising sun would cast a perfect line of light along the stairway. At Chichen Itza, the pyramid called El Castillo creates an astonishing illusion during the spring and autumn equinoxes. As the sun sets, the edges of the stepped structure cast triangular shadows that form the image of a serpent body descending the stairs. At the base of the pyramid, a carved serpent head waits with open jaws. In that moment, stone and light join to animate divine myth. The people watching believed the feathered serpent god had come to Earth once more to renew the world. Such planning proves that the pyramid was not mere construction but cosmic dialogue. To build a monument so precisely aligned required generations of knowledge passed quietly from teacher to student. It required rulers who devoted wealth and labor to a vision of time larger than any single human life. These pyramids reveal societies that saw themselves as part of the universe's grand machinery. Their buildings were not only shelters or symbols of wealth, they were tools that kept the cosmos turning. On the shores of a great lake, the city of Tenochtitlan later rose with a pyramid at its center called the Templo Mayor. This structure honored two gods. One god was Lord of Rain and Fertility, the one who filled the fields with crops and restored life with every storm. The other god was Lord of War and Power, the one who guided the sun across the sky and demanded strength from the people who served him. The Aztec pyramid united these two forces. It showed that life required both nourishment and bravery. The steps were steep, the climb difficult, reminding everyone who looked upward that the path to divine favor was never easy. Crowds gathered in the plaza below the Templo Mayor during ceremonies that marked the turning of seasons and the renewal of cosmic cycles. Musicians beat drums that sounded like thunder rolling across mountains. Priests spoke prayers to guide the sun. Offerings were raised in honor of the gods who shaped existence. The pyramid served as a high seat from which humans reached upward, while the gods reached downward. It made the invisible visible. It turned faith into architecture. Every pyramid across Mesoamerica carried a unique meaning, shaped by local culture, yet all shared one truth. They connected earth to sky. They made the ground sacred by lifting it toward the heavens. They taught people that the universe was ordered and that rulers existed to maintain that order. They were messages without words that communicated identity, tradition, and cosmic purpose. In these lands, the pyramid was not a silent marker of death, but a living stage of power. It drew people together, guided calendars, and ensured that the gods would not be forgotten. Even when these civilizations fell to conflict, drought, or the arrival of foreign powers, their pyramids remained. They became mountains of memory where tree roots twisted around ancient blocks, and curious explorers later climbed in wonder. They endured as proof that across oceans and across ages, humans searched for a way to rise above themselves, to join the sky, and to leave a permanent mark upon the world. Shrouded in mist or blazing under brilliant sun, the pyramids of the Americas remind us that monuments are not only stone, but belief given form. They summon crowds even today, not for ancient rituals, but for the silent thrill of standing where past and present converge. Their steps still challenge the legs, their peaks still command the view of land and sky, their power still radiates from every angle. Before Egypt raised its first giant pyramid, another land on the far side of the earth was already shaping the world into sacred geometry. Along the coast of the Pacific Ocean, in what is now Peru, a city rose from the desert more than 5,000 years ago. The people of Corral Supe did not write books to tell their story. They left no armies to carve their victories into stone. Instead, they built pyramids. These stepped structures made of woven reed bags, filled with stones, stood at the heart of a quiet yet astonishing civilization. Smoke once drifted above their plazas. Music from shell trumpets once echoed against the dry cliffs. Here the pyramid was not a tomb, but a gathering place. It united people in ceremony and song. It was a center of memory long before kings and pharaohs dreamed of eternal rule. The builders of Corral Supe did not need monumental burial chambers to prove power. Their pyramids declared that community itself was sacred. When the river that cut through the valley swelled with seasonal waters, the people planted crops that fed everyone. They traded with neighbors along the coast, bringing fish inland and exchanging goods across distances that still surprise archaeologists. In this early world, stability did not depend on empire or war. It depended on cooperation. The pyramids became the physical reminder of a shared life. They stood as anchors that held together a society that valued peace as much as progress. Far across the ocean, another tradition of pyramid building took shape in the lands of China. There, near the ancient capital of Xi, an enormous burial mounds rose from the earth like gentle hills. To the untrained eye, they look like parts of the natural landscape. But beneath those grassy slopes lie palaces for the dead, built to serve emperors who believed their rule must continue after death. The most famous is the tomb of the first emperor Qin Shi Huang, whose army of terracotta soldiers stands guard in underground halls. The mound above is essentially a pyramid softened by time and soil. It once rose in precise form, symbolizing the meeting of heaven and earth. Chinese pyramids did not reach for the sky with sharp peaks like those of Egypt or Kush. Instead, they reflected the sacred mountain shapes of Chinese belief. They blended architecture with landscape so the emperor could rule both the land he left behind and the spirit world beyond. Around these mounds, entire complexes stretched like cities hidden beneath the ground. Gardens, artificial rivers, and precious objects were sealed away for eternity. Ancient texts describe a sky painted on the ceiling above and mercury that flowed like rivers below. Whether those descriptions are literal or symbolic, they reveal a vision of afterlife profoundly tied to the natural world. The pyramid in China became not only a message of power, but a map of the universe contained within a tomb. It promised the ruler a world of his own, where immortality was a continuation of earthly authority. Time buried these mounds under layers of soil and vegetation, but they remain monuments of the same ambition that shaped pyramids everywhere. Authority reaching beyond the mortal breath, belief made real through stone and earth. To the south, in the islands of Southeast Asia, a different kind of step pyramid rises under thick tropical forest. On the volcanic slopes of Java, a site called Gunung Padang has captured attention and stirred debate. Its surface appears as terraces made from volcanic stone, rising above the valley like ancient steps toward the sky. Some researchers propose that these layers hide much older structures beneath perhaps tens of thousands of years old. Other scientists caution that natural processes may shape part of what is seen. Investigations continue with careful studies of soil composition and the layers of construction. The truth remains partly hidden, yet even in uncertainty, the human imagination responds to shapes that suggest intention. Whether Gunung Padang is the work of very ancient builders or a later sacred terrace, it reminds us that humans everywhere recognize the power of height. To stand above the land is to feel closer to what lies beyond sight. The pyramids of forgotten civilizations teach us humility. They show that our understanding of the past is always incomplete. Many societies built great structures whose stories were nearly lost to storms, sands, and forests. Some spoke languages that remain mysterious. Some left monuments so changed by erosion that their purpose is still questioned. Yet the pyramid form keeps reappearing, as if human belief returns to the same idea, again and again. A mountain shaped by hands becomes a message written to the heavens. It becomes a declaration that existence is not flat or directionless. It reaches upward. Across these continents, one pattern emerges. Whenever people gather in numbers and imagine their place in the universe, they build. They look around and see mountains and volcanoes rising toward the sky. They see clouds forming on high peaks. They feel distant forces watching from above. The pyramid becomes a way to join that world. It becomes a bridge that says humanity is not bound entirely to the ground. It is a tool that turns belief into a structure that can outlast droughts, floods, invasions, and the fading of language. Even when we uncover these pyramids in silence with only dust for company, they continue to speak. They speak of early farmers who trusted the river. They speak of emperors who commanded heaven to bow before them. They speak of unknown hands that place stones in patterns so precise that curiosity remains alive thousands of years later. They whisper that memory does not disappear. It waits beneath soil and shadow for those who search. These forgotten pyramids remind us that the global story of architecture is not written by one culture alone. It is a shared expression by countless minds, separated by oceans but united in wonder. The earth holds many messages carved into its surface. Each pyramid is a sentence in a chapter that began before writing began and will continue as long as humans dare to build forms that reflect the cosmos. When a pyramid rises from the earth, it does more than cast a shadow across the soil. It calls upward. It captures the gaze of anyone who looks toward the horizon and guides their eyes higher and higher until they meet the endless vault of the heavens. That simple journey of the gaze is the message at the heart of the pyramid. It tells every person who sees it that the human story does not end on the ground. It reminds them that the sky has always been the true stage where destiny unfolds. The pyramid becomes a signal sent from Earth to the stars, a silent declaration that humanity seeks a connection with the forces that govern the universe. In every place where pyramids were built, the people who shaped them believed that the sky was alive with meaning. Stars were not distant balls of fire separated by unimaginable spaces. They were ancestors, gods, guides, and calendars. They marked the passing of seasons and the rhythm of life. They predicted floods and harvests. They watched wars and agreed to peace. To align a monument with a star was to speak to it, to honor its power, and to ensure that the world below would follow the order of the world above. The pyramid made this relationship physical. Its sides pointed to the cardinal directions. Its corners captured the shifting light. Its apex reached for the point where the sun and moon reign. The ancient Egyptians built pyramids that aimed their passages toward specific stars. In the Great Pyramid, a narrow shaft points toward a cluster of stars connected to the god Osiris. Through that dark tunnel, the spirit of the pharaoh could rise into the night sky and join the eternal procession of celestial lights. The builders of these structures did not need telescopes. They watched the heavens carefully over generations. They learned how the northern stars never set but circle endlessly above. These stars became symbols of immortality. The pyramid became a stairway that allowed the king to join those never-setting lights. In other lands, the cosmic message took different shapes but spoke the same truth. The Maya built pyramids that predicted the return of the rainy season and the arrival of storms necessary for life. By tracking the motion of Venus, they planned ceremonies that tied human events to celestial cycles. When the feathered serpent seemed to move down the steps of El Castillo at Chichen Itza during the equinoxes, the people knew that the borders between heaven and earth had momentarily opened. They stood at the base of a stone mountain and felt the universe speaking through light and shadow. The pyramid was a cosmic instrument tuned to the songs of stars. Even in Kush and China, the orientation of pyramids followed invisible rules set by the heavens. The shape itself suggests the line taken by rays of sunlight as they spread outward from a distant point. It reflects the peak of a high mountain seen from the floor of a valley. People did not choose this form randomly. They observed nature. They watched volcanoes forever connected to fiery power below. They watched mountains where clouds clinged to peaks like veils dropped by spirits. They felt that height was a pathway that led upward toward beings greater than themselves. To send a message to the sky is to assume that someone is listening. That assumption reveals the hope that has always guided human imagination. People believed that the gods or the ancestors or the forces beyond the visible world cared enough to notice what they built. When sunlight strikes the sharp edge of a pyramid at the perfect moment, that alignment is more than coincidence. It is a handshake between earth and sky. It signals that humanity has learned enough, observed enough, and cared enough to shape stone in harmony with celestial truth. Some pyramids were built with reflective surfaces that turned the entire monument into a beacon. The casing stones of Giza once shone like polished white light. In the setting sun, the pyramid would blaze like a star. That brightness was part of the signal. A sunlit mountain of stone asked the heavens to recognize the power below. From far distances, travelers could see the gleam and understand that here was a place where heaven touched earth. The light that crowned the pyramid spoke to gods and mortals with equal clarity. It said that the ruler who commanded such brilliance deserved a place among the divine. The height of a pyramid also mattered deeply. The higher the structure, the stronger the conversation with the sky. To raise such great masses of stone is to challenge gravity itself. Every block lifted defies the natural pull downward, like a steady refusal to accept that humans must remain small. The taller the pyramid grows, the more it resists the idea that life belongs only to the ground. In its final shape, the monument stands as a permanent argument against limitation. On clear nights, the stars turn above pyramids with ancient familiarity. The builders who once stood beneath those stars are long gone, but their message remains intact. They carved meaning into geometry. They understood that form can carry thought. The pyramid becomes a kind of cosmic punctuation, a symbol that states a civilization once looked upward and found purpose. It declares that intelligence and wonder lived here. It tells anyone who sees it that humans have always questioned their place in the universe. Even today, these structures continue to align with the heavens as they rotate through time. The stars drift slowly due to Earth's motion, yet the pyramid's message persists. In modern times, astronomers use precise instruments to study the sky, but ancient civilizations built those instruments from stone. Their accuracy proves that our ancestors measured more than the Earth around them. They measured their desire to belong in a universe that feels immense and mysterious. They sought to write their existence into the lasting fabric of creation. When we stand before a pyramid and lift our eyes to follow its rising sides, we mirror the gesture of those who built it. For a moment, our attention leaves the ground. We search for meaning in the infinite distance above. The pyramid guides that search. It tells us that the ancient builders were not merely architects. They were thinkers who understood that the greatest questions must be asked, with monuments visible from the heavens. They believed that the cosmic order could be acknowledged and reinforced through stone. They believed that the stars respond to symbols carved by hands that yearn. In the quiet moments when day fades into night, the pyramid shows its truest purpose. The sky brightens with constellations older than language. The triangular silhouette stands black and sharp against that eternal canvas. It becomes a signal without voice, repeated across continents, joining cultures that never met, but dreamed the same dream. The pyramid keeps sending that dream upward. It keeps asking the stars to notice. When we look at the pyramids today, we see shape and mass and breathtaking ambition. But hidden within those stones is another message. The ancients did not build only for the sky. They also built for the future. Their monuments were designed to survive the fall of kings, the collapse of empires, and the erosion of memory itself. They built time capsules. Within every pyramid lies a promise that a voice from the past will continue to speak long after language changes and cities turn to dust. Imagine Egypt in the time of the early pharaohs. The desert wind moves across open plains. The Nile rises each year to bring life. Farmers plant their grains and wait for the river to retreat. In this world, the pharaoh stands as the center of order, believed to be chosen by the gods to ensure that life continues without chaos. But what happens when a pharaoh dies? Does order vanish? The Egyptians feared this deeply, so they built pyramids not simply to bury rulers, but to protect the idea that the world is stable. Within the limestone blocks of a pyramid, they sealed the belief that the kingdom must endure beyond the mortality of one person. Inside these structures, workers carved names and titles and family lines into stone. They placed objects meant to guide the pharaoh's soul into eternity. They include boats for travel in the afterlife, statues representing loyal servants, models of daily life, and symbols of divine authority. All of these are messages written without ink. They say, remember who ruled here. Remember who commanded the floods to return and the sun to rise. Remember the bond between heaven and earth that held civilization together. And if someone unknown far in the future opens this place, let them understand that power once lived here. The Egyptians mastered permanence. They chose granite and limestone because these stones resist weather and time. They created architecture so precise that even after thousands of years the joints still hold, and the orientation remains true to the cardinal directions. They aligned their pyramids so that even if knowledge faded, anyone could look at the structure and sense an order greater than accidental placement. Their message was not a whisper, it was a statement engraved in geometry. In other parts of the world, the same instinct appeared. The Maya filled their pyramids with inscriptions carved in glyphs that tell stories about rulers, victories, cosmic cycles, and sacred obligations. These inscriptions remain legible despite centuries of rain and jungle growth. The Maya even recorded astronomical data on their monuments, leaving behind a stone-made library that continues to reveal the precision of their science. Their pyramids are documents written for a reader who might come thousands of years later. In Kushan China, objects buried beneath the mounds carried memory. Forward. Gold jewellery, weaponry, intricate pottery, and symbols of kingship all rested in the darkness awaiting rediscovery. Even when the language is no longer read and the rituals no longer practiced, those artifacts speak clearly. They tell us that people valued beauty and craftsmanship as part of their eternal identity. They show that the rulers believed their names should not fade. Each tomb is a sealed archive protected not by paper or ink, but by earth and architecture. One of the most remarkable examples of pyramids as time capsules appears in Teotihuacan. When the inhabitants built the Pyramid of the Moon and the Pyramid of the Sun, they buried offerings deep within. These offerings include obsidian blades, greenstone masks, animal remains, and sculptures symbolizing water, fire, and life. These objects were not placed randomly. They were arranged with intention to define the universe within the pyramid's core. That buried universe would remain untouched by generations above. When modern archaeologists discovered these offerings, they did not simply find artifacts. They uncovered a worldview preserved exactly as the builders intended. Every pyramid is a message to those yet unborn. The message says we existed and we believed something worth sharing. It says we cared that the future would know us. It says that time can erase the weak details, but the strong story will remain. The builders knew that climate, conflict, and chance would destroy wooden homes and fragile writings. But stone is stubborn. It resists the forgetfulness that time brings. In their endurance, pyramids become the memory keepers of humanity. Even in decay, their purpose survives. Many pyramids lost their smooth outer layers long ago. Some were broken open by looters in search of treasure. Others were caught by storms or buried in sands and forests. But the core idea holds. Anyone who finds these structures feels the weight of history even without explanation. The pyramid itself is a signal that something important happened here. It invites questions. It charges curiosity. It refuses to remain silent. The most powerful part of this time capsule idea is that the message does not depend on language. Even if no inscription remains, the shape alone speaks. Humans everywhere recognize that a pyramid represents intention, organization, and belief in something greater than the moment. It is a universal expression that transcends borders and eras. When a child looks at a pyramid for the first time, the reaction is immediate wonder. That wonder is the message working exactly as the builders hoped. Modern scientists study these monuments using advanced tools, ground-penetrating radar, precise date measurements, and careful excavation reveal details that the builders would never have guessed technology could uncover. And yet, the builders likely trusted that any sufficiently curious future would find ways to open the puzzle. They did not build to hide forever. They built to be rediscovered. The pyramid is a conversation with tomorrow. It is a monument that says, "Listen to us even after we are gone." It preserves not only information but emotion. It captures ambition and fear and the desire to be remembered. All humans share that desire. None of us wants to disappear completely. The ancient builders solved that problem with stone. Today, when we stand inside the shadow of a pyramid, we become the answer to their message. We are the future they imagined. We are the ones who read the silent code they carved into the earth. And in that moment, the distance between past and present collapses. The pyramid succeeds. It has done exactly what it was meant to do. It has carried memory across the ocean of time. The ancient pyramids still rise from desert and jungle as if nothing has changed. But the world around them has transformed again and again. New languages, new religions, new borders, new technologies. Empires have risen and collapsed like waves. Civilizations that once feared the wrath of forgotten gods are now gone. And yet, the pyramids stay. They stand in silence, but their influence continues to spread into the architecture and the psychology of the modern world. Their message did not end in antiquity. It evolved. Walk through a modern city and look upward. Towers made of glass, steel, and concrete slice through the sky. Corporate headquarters, national capitals, museums, memorials. These buildings do not resemble pyramids in the exact geometry of stone blocks, yet they follow the same principle. They stretch toward the heavens. They claim the skyline. They declare that the people who built them matter. A skyscraper in the center of a financial district is a monument to commerce. A Capitol dome rising above a nation's capital is a monument to political authority. The shape has changed, the materials have changed, but the intention remains familiar. Our age still sends messages in architecture. Think of the Eiffel Tower in Paris, the Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor, or the towering skyline of cities like Dubai. These structures announce identity. They communicate the values of the people who stand beneath them. They say we are here and we intend to be seen. They catch light the way the smooth casing of the Great Pyramid once did. They reflect the sun so that even from a distance one understands the presence of power. Museums and memorials too carry the legacy of ancient monumental messaging. They are built so that past events will not fade into the fog of forgotten stories. A memorial made of stone names those who must be remembered. It tells future generations to honor sacrifice and loss. This is the same message the tombs of Egypt and China carried. Architecture becomes a vessel for memory. It becomes a time capsule of sorrow and triumph. It guards the truth even when witnesses have vanished. The pyramid also shaped the human imagination about the afterlife and the universe. The idea that the soul rises after death remains woven into modern belief systems. Even people who have never studied ancient history instinctively think of heaven as a place above. This simple connection between height and spiritual power was strengthened by every pyramid that ever claimed the sky. Those monuments taught humanity to look upward for meaning. Today, space exploration continues that lesson. Rockets launch into the void, carrying satellites and telescopes that extend human sight deep into the cosmos. The modern quest to understand the universe is another way of climbing the pyramid. Propaganda too follows this ancient blueprint. Governments around the world build monuments to influence the minds of citizens. A giant statue or a monumental plaza tells people who and what they should celebrate. The architecture of power is designed to impress and overwhelm. It delivers a silent message of control. This is not new. The pharaohs used pyramids to prove they commanded both earth and sky. The Aztecs used temples to demonstrate that the gods favored their rule. The language of authority has always been written in stone. Even popular culture is drawn to pyramids. Movies and books use their shape to create a sense of ancient mystery and cosmic significance. Their image suggests secrets, power, and a knowledge hidden from everyday life. Pyramids appear in science fiction as symbols of alien technology. They appear in adventure tales as hidden tombs guarding priceless artifacts. They appear in conspiracy theories as encoded messages meant for advanced minds. The pyramid is no longer only a historical structure. It has become a symbol in the collective imagination. It represents the unknown past and the possibility that humanity once reached heights we are only beginning to rediscover. The influence of pyramids can also be found in the way people respond to scale. When we stand before something gigantic, we feel small. That feeling is not weakness, it is awe. Ancient rulers relied on awe to maintain loyalty and reverence. Modern leaders rely on it too. Stadiums, cathedrals, and monumental bridges evoke the same emotional reaction that pyramids once did. They remind the human mind that community can accomplish the seemingly impossible. They tell us that we are part of a story larger than our individual lives. Yet the legacy of pyramids also carries a warning. Building big requires great labor and great sacrifice. Many who hauled stones for ancient kings lived short lives of hardship. The greatness of the few often depended on the suffering of many. Today we must ask whether our monuments serve the people or merely glorify those in power. Architecture reflects society's values. The question is whether we build to inspire or to control. The pyramid stands as proof of both the brilliance and the blindness of human ambition. Still, the central message remains meaningful. A pyramid says that humans refuse to be forgotten. It declares that we are conscious beings who question the nature of life and death. We build because we believe that our existence has purpose, and in that belief there is beauty. The stone that forms a pyramid is not simply a physical weight. It is the weight of meaning. It carries hope, fear, pride, and longing. The legacy of pyramids also reminds us that nothing is entirely permanent. Even the sharpest edges wear down. Even the greatest rulers become names without faces. But the message persists. The monument speaks even when the history is fractured. Its voice continues even when its builders are silent. That endurance is the true triumph of architecture. It is the ability to remain a presence in the world long after everything else changes. Our modern structures may one day fall to time. Our cities may erode, our monuments may crumble. Yet someone in a distant age will uncover the remnants and wonder. They will study our buildings and try to read the messages we encoded into their shapes. In that moment, we will become the ancient ones. We will become the civilization sending a message to the future. And what will our monuments say? Will they speak of unity and learning? Or will they echo rivalry and dominance? Will they celebrate the human spirit or merely the wealth of the powerful? The legacy of pyramids challenges us to decide what story we want our own architecture to tell. As long as humans build, the message continues. Every structure reaching for the sky is part of the same conversation begun thousands of years ago. It is the conversation between earth and heaven, between life and the idea of eternity. The pyramid still shapes the way we dream. Stand in front of any pyramid and let silence settle. Feel the weight of time pressing from every direction. Hear the wind that has moved across the same stones for thousands of years. In that moment, the distance between the ancient world and the present disappears. The pyramid becomes a voice that has spoken across eras of triumph and disaster, a voice that continues to speak even when no one listens. It tells a story about who we were, who we are, and who we hope to be. The first message written in stone is power, not simply the power of kings or priests, but the power of humans as a collective force. Every block lifted into place required hundreds of hands working together. Every angle aligned with the stars required minds that studied the sky with patience greater than any single lifetime. The pyramid shows the strength of unity. It shows that when people believe in a vision, even one shaped by fear or faith or ambition, they can alter the face of the earth. Power is not only domination. Power is the ability to leave a mark. The second message is belief. A pyramid is not built to solve a practical problem. It does not provide food or shelter on its own. It satisfies a different need, one that arises deep within human thought. It answers the question of why we exist. The builders of these monuments believed that life continues beyond death. They believed that the universe is guided by order. They believed that what happens on Earth matters to the heavens. That belief made stone rise in wide triangles visible for miles. Belief gave geometry a soul. And the third message is permanence. Humanity fears forgetting. We fear drifting into oblivion as if we never lived at all. So we write names on walls, carve stories into sculpture, and shape mountains into symbols. The pyramid is the physical solution to the spiritual anxiety of time. It says, "Do not forget us." It says we fought against the erasing winds of the world. It says we stood upright, reached upward, and dared to stand at the boundary between earth and sky. The stones may crack and crumble, but the message persists. Civilization leaves traces. Memory endures. Across continents and cultures, the pyramid form repeats. Egypt, Kush, Mesoamerica, China, Indonesia, and the lost valleys of Peru all discovered the same truth. To build upward is to confront the invisible. To align stone with the horizon is to speak to the cosmos. To gather the labor of thousands is to show that society has purpose beyond survival. Every pyramid is a reply to the same ancient question. What does it mean to be human? It means to wonder. It means to strive. It means to send a message to a future we will never see. One day, our own monuments will stand in ruins. The highways will crack. The skyscrapers will fall. The satellites will drift silent in space. Grass will rise between the bones of our cities. And someone, or something, will discover the remnants. They will see shapes that point upward. They will see that we too refuse to remain earthbound. They will understand that we yearn to be remembered. The pyramid teaches a final truth. The message written in stone is not about the builders, it is about the readers. The real audience was always the future. Those who shaped the blocks and carried them into place could not imagine our world of electric light and engines and distant voyages, yet they still trusted that time would deliver their message. They trusted that someone would ask why, and we have. We stand beneath the massive forms and we ask. We place our hands on ancient blocks and we ask. We study their alignments, their inscriptions, their mysteries, and again we ask. The question itself is the completion of their message. The pyramid endures not just because stone is strong, it endures because curiosity is stronger. As long as minds exist that gaze upward and wonder, the message continues. It is a message from one generation of humanity to every generation that follows. It says that we are capable of reaching beyond ourselves. It says that we are part of the cosmos, not separate from it. So the pyramid still speaks. It speaks for the kings who claimed eternity. It speaks for the workers who hauled the stones. It speaks for the priests who read the stars, and the neighbours who watched shadows shift along the steps. It speaks for the children who looked up and felt awe. It speaks for all of us, because the true message of the pyramid is hope. Hope that existence matters. Hope that the future will care. Hope that memory will not be lost. The stones stand silent, but the message is loud. It says that humanity has always dared to dream beyond the horizon of life. In the end, nothing built by humans lasts forever, but some things last long enough to remind us that we tried, that we looked at the universe and replied with monuments so vast that even time must pause to consider them. The pyramid was never just a monument, it was a message, and we are the ones who finally heard it.